Thank you for joining us. Today, we've pulled together some of the folks on the ground at Avivo who are working towards ending homelessness in Minnesota. Everyone at Avivo is, in some way, helping to end or prevent homelessness. We meet people where they are at, providing shelter options, housing, and other crucial support, such as treatment and employment services, to help lift or keep folks out of homelessness. Today, we have a great group of Avivo staff who represent the services I just mentioned. We're excited to introduce them. First, meet Julie Kizlik, Service Area Director for Avivo's Employment and Family Services. Avivo is the largest provider of the Minnesota Family Investment Program, or MFIP services. These are employment services that help families move from public assistance to work and economic security. For nearly 30 years, Julie has led Avivo's work in this area. Her passionate team of 85 staff support nearly 9,000 individuals and families each year, with nearly 2,000 moving off of assistance and into work. Homelessness intersects with nearly all employment services at Avivo. Next is Emily Bastian, Avivo's Vice President of Ending Homelessness. Emily oversees Avivo's Homelessness Division, which includes a 100-dwelling transitional housing shelter called Avivo Village, opioid street outreach services, housing case management, and housing support services. With more than 20 years of experience, she has helped Avivo grow to serving more than 900 individuals annually who have or are in the process of transitioning out of homelessness. David Jeffries is the Program Director for Avivo Village and our outreach teams. David has a 15-year career of working with people experiencing homelessness. He has experience at House of Charity, Hazelton Center for Youth and Families, and street outreach with St. Stephen's Human Services. David joined Avivo in 2019 as the manager of our Red Lake and street outreach programs. Partnering with numerous service providers, his teams have evacuated Minneapolis homeless encampments to hotels where people find safety and take their next best steps to finding housing and support. Victoria Swain is the clinical manager of Avivo's Transitional Recovery Housing. She leads Avivo's Transitional Recovery Housing team to ensure safe and healthy living that supports individuals' recovery while they are in treatment. She works on integrating clinical services for clients. She helps secure housing for individuals graduating from treatment so they are ready to move into independent housing. And finally, I'm your host today, Justin LaBeaux, and I'm the program manager for Avivo's street outreach team. My team works hard to connect individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness to shelter, housing, and support. We collaborate with Avivo Village, city, county, tribal agencies, and nonprofit organizations to make this happen. I'll be asking questions of our team, but you can also ask questions while you're watching. Just find the chat box on YouTube or on Facebook, and we'll answer your questions as quickly as we can. Now let's get started. Emily, what should people know about homelessness? What are the underlying issues or causes?
You know, Justin, I think that's a really complicated question. And it would take a long time for people to learn all that there is to know about homelessness. I would say that homelessness is a systemic issue. Homelessness is not a character flaw or a character defect. And in many cases, people are homeless because of things that have been totally out of their control. Underlying causes, again, you know, I hear people talking about the fact that the system is broken and that's why people are experiencing homelessness. And I would say that the system works exactly how it was built to work, which is to allow some people power and privilege and other people to be in a situation with less power and experiencing homelessness. So there are other underlying causes too. There's not enough housing. There's just not enough housing stock. People have experienced trauma. And so there are a wide variety of causes, but in all, I would say it's a systemic issue.
Next question is also for Emily. What are some misconceptions about homelessness?
I would say that the biggest misconception is that people are homeless because of something they've done, that homelessness is a character flaw or that people haven't tried hard enough, or they haven't valued the lessons they've been given, or that they can't follow rules. And so all of those things really point to the person being bad or doing something wrong. And I would say that that is probably the biggest misconception. Many folks who have experienced homelessness have not done things wrong or bad or incorrectly or haven't tried hard enough. Yeah, that would be the misconception.
Sweet. The next question I have is for Julia, Victoria, and David. How does your team come face to face with homelessness at Avivo? And Victoria, if you want to start.
Yeah, so specifically I work in TRH, or Transitional Recovery Housing, and so with the clients that we work with, a lot of them are actually coming straight off of the street. So because of their mental health and substance use, it's just kind of, and the system, as Emily was talking about, is just kind of put them in this hard spot where they're experiencing homelessness.
And for me, my team is divided into two. So there's one that does street outreach, and the other oversees the operation of Avivo Village. And so it looks completely different, I think, in some ways for both. One, you're meeting people where they're sleeping outside with the street outreach team, as you may know. And then the other is transitioning people from the street into their own home at Avivo Village. And then you get to meet people and see them sort of transition from being outside to being inside.
Hi, I'm Julie. I work primarily with family and employment services, and we work a lot with parents who are receiving public assistance. And as a recipient of public assistance, you are required to work with organizations like Avivo. Because of this, homelessness is largely hidden in our service area, and a lot of that stems from fear and the stigma and misconception that parents may lose their children if they're not able to provide a suitable home for them. We are sometimes made aware that someone is experiencing homelessness if they're referred to us from a shelter, or sometimes the parent does disclose this directly to the staff member. But because we're a required program, that is a challenge to learn, and we have to build those relationships. Sometimes we don't know at all until they're in crisis. As Emily alluded to, there isn't enough housing. Affordable housing is not affordable for recipients of public assistance. The resources are scarce and in some counties non-existent. A lot of times families will make alternative living arrangements, and they don't even consider themselves to be homeless because they're living with family, friends, extended family, or relatives. And unfortunately, that can have a negative impact on everyone involved, and the residual effects of those decisions can have consequences that will last for years.
Avivo provides employment and family services known as Minnesota Family Investment Program, or MFIB, to help families move off of public assistance programs. When we consider addressing homelessness from an employment perspective, how does MFIB address homelessness? What can Avivo career counselors do better to assist participants who are homeless? And I'd love to hear Julie's insights on this question.
Oh, well, thank you. Until recently, MFIB recipients were required to secure employment. Through a lot of advocacy efforts, that was changed at a legislative level, and now families are allowed to, now homelessness is recognized as good cause. And so families are allowed to work and stabilize their positions and their housing without fear of sanction or fear of loss of future financial support. What this has led to is a substantial impact on the families that we work with, because without those fears, families are able to focus on what they really need to do to move forward to that and achieve that economic stability. You can't move forward if you're focused on the instability of your family, and you can't focus on the future if your present is in jeopardy or even uncertain. Now families can work on securing their housing, and staff can work with the the families to create plans that address those issues, incorporate the steps, incorporate the resources, and anything else that they need in order to stabilize that family from the get-go so they can look into the future.
Struggling with addiction or living with mental illness complicates homelessness. Victoria, how important is having housing for an individual or family looking to reach recovery? How does that work at Avivo?
Yeah, so I think that's actually a really good question because I do think that mental health and substance use really does get entangled with homelessness. And part of that is because when someone's experiencing homelessness, they're focused on surviving. They're not focused on thriving, as a lot of people would say. They're not focused on helping themselves, get better or working towards their other goals. They're literally focusing on day to day. How am I going to eat? Am I going to be safe? What happens if I fall asleep in the wrong area? And so to be able to even start addressing your substance use or your mental health and looking for additional services or resources, you have to know that you're going to be safe at the end of the day. And once you can not worry about being safe anymore or having food, then you can start addressing these other issues that are going on or struggles that you have. And so at Avivo, that's why we have multiple different housing programs. And then once we get you into housing programs, we can help connect you to other resources. Or at Transitional Recovery Housing, we house the individuals and then we help them get connected to mental health services. They start outpatient programming. Then we are able to build a team around them to help them be successful long-term.
Great. So David, this next question is for you. Avivo has an outreach team, one of many Hennepin County providers that connects people living on the streets to help find them permanent housing and supports. What does street outreach look like for people living on the streets? Why is it important?
Well, I think for multiple reasons, but one that keeps coming to mind too could be to access services, right? And to get connected to either healthcare, housing, mental health services, food resources. Folks could be food insecure living on the street. And then often too, because that role and that work is so relational, street outreach looks like for that person, a friendly hello. It could be, I get to know your name. I get to treat you like a human being. And that relationship, that really relational engagement is how it all kind of starts, that journey starts that way.
Yeah. So what is Avivo Village and what makes it unique? What part does it play in the community working to end homelessness?
That's a big question. It's pretty good. So Avivo Village is a warehouse space in downtown Minneapolis in the North Loop. There's 100 individual homes there. There are services in there as well, like services for housing, mental health, chemical health. And you obviously can access food there and shower and do your laundry there and get to know your neighbors. What role does that play in the community? Well, in ending homelessness, I would say it is a key factor in a number of places. Number one is you get to live in your own space. And often I think people in traditional shelters don't have that and access that as you please. You can come and go as you please, just like you do at your own home. So that is a big key in making people feel equitable to others. Two is that you are expected to come and be yourself, which is another thing that doesn't often happen in shelters, in traditional shelters, that you can just be there and you don't have to give us anything in return, and we'll be there to help you access whatever services you like. And so I think what we're doing there is extremely important at Avivo Village, but also too, even if we just offer someone a place to be for a while and they don't end up connecting with housing or other services for us, at least they had a safe place to sleep. And that's the key for everybody. place to sleep and rest and actually get healthy is more important than anything.
Sure. So Emily, I'd love to hear your take on this next question. What makes Avivo successful in helping people find housing?
I would say the first thing is the incredible team that we have. We really look at every individual that comes to us as a person with intrinsic dignity and worth, and not as a name on a list. And so we sit with the person in front of us to find out what is it that is important to them, what is important to them and for them in their housing and their success. And then we offer them a radical welcome and accept them as they are, irregardless of how they've come to us or what their history is or what choices they've made or where they want to be. We ask people what family looks like to them and who they want to live with. And so we're really taking a person-centered approach. So that's what makes us successful, I think, in building relationship and trust and kind of long-term work. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that landlords are really important to us as well. If we don't have good relationships with landlords, we're not able to support people in getting into housing and advocating for people. And so we also have a lot of very good relationships with landlords that our team has spent countless hours developing. And we follow up and we do what we say we're going to do, both for clients and where landlords are concerned.
Yeah, for sure. So this next question is for the other three. What could your program use with more funding?
Yeah. So one of my biggest things is always like, how can we update the apartments that we have the clients in, and what type of stuff can we bring in to help them be more successful? Because I really do think that if people have a nice place to live, they're going to be happier. They're going to feel maybe more motivated, maybe more welcomed. And if we are able to provide them with, all the supplies that they need. And so once again, it goes back to helping them learn how to thrive versus just survive. So if we're able to provide them with all the supplies and a nice place to live to help boost mental health, and then bring in all these services, then I think it would be really good.
That's a good one. I think for us, it could be deposits for new apartments or application fees, or operationally at Avivo Village, it could help us continue to buy art supplies and to engage the residents there, or to set up things so that folks can shop on their own and buy their own clothes. Yeah, looks like that.
I would have to agree with David on that. Deposits, application fees, rent assistance. Sometimes it serves us better to prevent the situation from ever escalating and reaching the point of homelessness. And if we can stabilize somebody through just a little bit of extra funding for this month or maybe for 2 months, that would really make a huge difference in the lives of them and their children.
And this final question I'm going to direct towards Emily. What else can listeners do personally to help end homelessness?
Yeah. Other than donating and supporting programs, I would say educate yourself. Educate yourself on the causes of homelessness. Educate yourself on your community and who your elected officials are, who your decision makers are. Make sure they have the information necessary. Talk to your kids about homelessness. When you drive by and there's someone flying a sign on the corner, it's a perfect time to talk to the child in your life that might be in the back seat about what's going on, and that turning away and pretending that you don't see them is sending a message that we don't want to send. So educate yourself, your children, your families. Vote. Vote for folks that care about people experiencing homelessness, and just be an involved community member.
Yeah, that's very well put. So thank you to Julie, David, Victoria, and Emily for your time and the amazing work you do at Avivo. I'm glad to be part of this team and the work Avivo is doing to help end homelessness in Minnesota. So thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting our work during this important time.